Hello, bonjour, and welcome to your new Bonheur Private Wines video. Today we're going to be talking about what's inside your wine. Yes, because it's important to know what's in what you drink and eat, right? Wine somewhat strangely benefits from this exception among food products that producers don't have to write what's in it or the nutrition facts on the back labels. So let's cover exactly that, the nutrition facts. If you are worried that this will remind you too much of the chemistry lessons that you didn't take, don't worry, I'll keep things super simple as usual. And it is actually pretty simple when you break things down properly. It essentially comes down to 4 main components plus a few little things that we'll talk about as well. Let's go and have a look into those right now. Yes, admittedly, it's easily forgotten about when you have a look at a rich and dense glass of wine just like this one, but wine is mainly composed of water. Yes, expensive water, some may argue. Possibly, yes, well, maybe not that expensive if you consider that this is pure rainwater that's been purified and filtered through the root system of many vines somewhere around the world and then carefully fed to what the plants thought were going to be their offspring, little baby grape berries. Premium formula this essentially is. Joke aside, here's the big picture of what a wine's composition is, put simply. Wine is about 82 to 85% water, 12 to 15% alcohol, 1% glycerol, 0.5% acids, less than 0.5% of carbohydrates, and a few other small things, important things too that we'll talk about later. So let's have a look into those different categories. At least you do have this type of information on the back of your wine label, so you're probably quite familiar with the alcohol content of your wine, right? Essentially, just to summarize, pretty much all wines fall into this bracket between 12 to 12.5% ethanol by volume, this is, and 15% with some rare outliers. The 12% alcohol wines, or the ones around there, are going to be mainly your sparkling wines and some light style white wines mainly, such as some Grigios from Italy, Pinot Grigios or equivalent Grigios from the US, some light German Rieslings, Vino Verdes from Portugal, or similar types of light white wines. For red wines, you really have to go for very, very cool climates, such as some Burgundy Pinot Noirs or some Beaujolais in France, to get such low levels of alcohol. I'm afraid it's quite rare to find such levels in most New World wines, including California's, even with the Pinot Noirs, because the climate is just warmer there, resulting in producing riper grapes that have more sugar, therefore resulting in higher alcohol into the wines. You just can't have it all, rich and good wines and low alcohol. Now, following that same rule that warmer climates produce richer wines, the wines with the high alcohol levels at 14% and above are generally going to be your big, bold reds in the style or similar style as your Napa Cabernets, Cabernet Sauvignons, the California Zinfandel, Argentina Malbec, or rich Chateauneuf du Pape from the Rhone Valley if we go to France. Some fortified wines, which are generally sweet dessert wines, can go a little bit higher, up to 17 or 20% alcohol, but they are not very common at all. There is about 1% glycerol in wine that I mentioned before, which chemically is classified as an alcohol, but it doesn't have any effect on your nervous system. It's a little bit like a viscous and a little sweet compound formed during the fermentation, perfectly natural, that participates in the oily texture, the body, and the legs of a wine. Yes, the legs. From this roughly 85% 50% split between water and alcohol in wine, well, we fall to about 0.5% for acids in wine. This may sound pretty small, even though of course wine is still one of the most acidic of all beverages that we drink, with a pH of around 3 to 3.5. For reference, lemon juice is at 2 to 3, Coke is 2.5, so we're almost as acidic as those. I won't expand too much on the type of about acids that are in wine. This is getting a little too complicated, but what's interesting here are two things. One, all acids in wine are organic acids, not organic in the sense that they're grown with organic farming, but in the sense that they are natural molecules that are synthesized by the plant, unlike some chemical acids that are added in sodas, for example, and other beverages that we have that are made in big factories. Secondly, the main acid in wine is one that is called tartaric acid. That's the one that forms crystals sometimes in our wine bottles. It's a totally natural phenomenon, by the way. What's great about tartaric acid is that it's virtually only found in vines and grapes. Nothing else on earth makes some tartaric acid. Therefore, most microorganisms cannot metabolize it or feed on it. They virtually hate it, if you wish. And this feature dramatically helps with wine not spoiling with age. Try to make wine with citrus, lemon or orange, for example, and you'll see that it cannot age because bacteria love citric acid. They eat it, they grow on it, and they essentially are going to spoil the beverage that you make. But enough sour chemistry, let's talk about sweetness. As you've probably noticed, the majority of wines out there are what we call dry, meaning that all the sugar from the grapes that make the grapes sweet has been converted into alcohol during the fermentation. Said dry wines do still contain a little bit of sugar, but not enough to be perceived as sweet, especially against the strong acidity of the wine, because it's only a few grams per liter, just touches of sugar, and about less than 0.1% of the overall composition of a wine. Now, sweet wines are another completely different beast, as they can contain 50, 100 grams per liter of sugar, which can be sort of like type of concentration, but you certainly know when you taste one of those because they taste really sweet. Otherwise, most dry wines that aren't too rich and too powerful are accepted in the keto diet, which bans all forms of carbohydrates, which I think is quite telling. As for the calories in wines, well, we'll leave that for another video for the future. It is an important topic to have in mind, but we'll leave it aside for now. Let's finish up with a few other compounds that are found in wine. Of course, you've all heard that wine contains tannins and polyphenols, right? Now, to go through what are those are complex molecules. They're normally rather big, but they can vary in size, and sometimes they get bigger with time, with the aging of the wine. So big, in fact, while they normally stay in suspension in the wine, they're sometimes going to fall down the bottom, especially of your old wines. Now, what we call tannins are those large compounds that have the ability to react and bind with proteins. It's this binding with the protein of our palate and our taste buds that gives the drying sensation in red wine that we call astringency. It's the same property that we use to tan animal skin to make leather. That's why they are called tannins. Yes, to make leather there are different kinds of tannins, but they are still for tanning. Essentially the same family of molecules. They're normally synthesized by the plant to protect the grapes from aggressions from fungus. They have a protective effect. Now, the more reactive with proteins those tannins are, the more aggressive the wine is going to feel and react with your taste buds. And this aggressivity, this harshness of the tannin decreases with age. That's why old wines are softer and smoother than young wines. Now, wine also contains smaller polyphenols that can be quite powerful antioxidants, like one that is very famous that is called resveratrol. Once absorbed in our system, those help with protecting the arteries and some other organs, and they are responsible for some of the health benefits of a moderate consumption of wine that's been observed. Finally, polyphenols, as I mentioned before, give its color to red and rosé wines, these purple hues, red hues. Whites and rosés have less tannins and less polyphenols than reds. Wine, of course, also contains thousands of different aromas, many of which are very similar to those found in different fruits from all around the world, giving different wines the varied scents that we know, like the citrus, red berries, stone fruit, tropical notes. Finally, wine contains contains a wealth of minerals like calcium, iron, magnesium and so on, as well as group B and P vitamins that contribute to a varied and balanced nutrition. Much like a portion of fruit if you wish, that are positive as long as it's within a moderate consumption as far as wine is concerned. This combination of those 5 family of components, this is what makes of wine such a unique beverage that is able to elevate our dishes, our tasting experiences, and elevate our minds as well. It's also able to protect our health and allow us to travel through space with all the stories from around the world that it brings to us when we taste it, and that we like to tell you here in the Wine Explorer's letter. Those wines also allow us to travel and voyage through time, as you can today taste the flavors of fruits that were grown decades ago simply by opening a bottle of an old wine. This will be my final thought for today and my final word for today. I'll see you next week with another next video, and I will see you soon in the wonderful world of wine. Take care in the meantime. Cheers.